Holy Halloween hijinks, Wolfpack! The night of fear is here. And we're closing out spooky season with a super special horror. It's high time we review the Goosebumps event of the century. The love letter to a golden age, the largest noteworthy title loved by Goose fans, Attack of the Mutant. After years of requests, we're at last checking off another popular / infamous limited editions of R.L. Stine's classic run on his horror masterpiece, as it was no mere small underrated entry, but another huge cornerstone of the saga. Oh yes, this was a major event which won Goosebumps much attention, and was gifted a 2-part special release. Though, believe it or not, despite having its fans, Attack of the Mutant is surprisingly one of the most divisive Goosebumps fables in the series, as it split the fandom into 2 groups who either love it or hate it.
You lie!
I know, I'm shocked too. However, it's the truth. Attack of the Mutant's essentially a good old-fashioned comic book come-to-life fantasy, as a young fanboy gets swept up into his favorite fictional world, entering our real world, where he encounters some superhero tropes, dark adventures, his favorite icons, and favorite villains. It's an incredibly rad premise and amazing concept, as many of us who adore superhero media, particularly kids, would wholeheartedly embrace the idea. However, over time this episode has slowly grown into a lesser story for some, who even hate it, thanks to some wasted opportunity and overhyped letdown. Depending on who you ask, Attack of the Mutant is either one of the series' standouts for its unique premise and memorable villain, or one of the weaker entries for Stine's lack of comics knowledge and a weak narrative. Heck, I've even seen some critics list it as the worst episode of the series.
Bullshit!
Me personally, I sincerely love it, and for the longest time, this used to be my favorite Goosebumps book and episode of the saga. I'll confess that Stine's lack of comic knowledge is a clear factor, as he was unaware of how superhero media evolved to a higher standard, like X-Men or Batman the Animated Series, as his take on comics is more so Super Friends and 60s Batman. Nevertheless, his take on capes from his own childhood did still supply us with something unique. I truly believe what made it so good is how playful and trippy it is, as the showrunners really had fun with this concept. And Stine wrote a very unsettling take on retro comics having a sinister presence if they were in our reality, forging a delightful tale of suspense.
We got him now!
Regardless of the fan civil war, there's no denying that Attack of the Mutant is a big name. This wasn't an obscure story or small filler arc. This was a tale on par with The Haunted Mask, Stay Out of the Basement, and Horrorland classics. The Masked Mutant was a marketing giant for Goosebumps, as he had endless merchandise, action figures, shirts, logos, costumes, posters, and heck, he even had a video game. For reals, exactly like the Horrorland horrors, the Masked Mutant had a video game.
An unknown intruder from the outside world has slipped inside our headquarters, and he or she has to be apprehended at once!
This foe was so awesome that many consider the supervillain Psycho as one of the best bad guys of the series, and many walked away remembering him. Now, for all my book fans, the show genuinely did a decent job mimicking the novel, but there are some changes here and there which do alter the direction. For the most part, the episode's a solid retelling of the book, but not a 100% copycat of it. Being a major Stine adventure, they of course had to scale down certain aspects and play out different events for a more reasonable production.
I like money!
To be fair, I do think the show did a masterful job as they managed to recapture the book's spirit perfectly and offer up a sweet, twisted nightmare. However, after gaining some greater tales which parody this exact premise, Goosebumps' attempt has been outclassed by other variants of this, such as the tale of the ghastly grinner, the last action hero, and even our old pal the Haunting Hour's brush with madness. So the OG show might not be as grand as Superman, and some criticisms can be legit for both sides. Is Attack of the Mutants adaptation still a God Among Us, or a lame killing joke? That's what we're here to find out. Grab your molecular blasters and crack open your comics, because we're turning the page to see what happens next. This is our wacky review on the legendary Detective Comics terror, Attack of the Mutant. So, our episode opens up, appropriately enough, with a comic book, which introduces us to both our big hero and foe. We meet Skipper, a fat loser nerd obsessed with comic books, especially the titles about his all-time favorite villain, the Masked Mutant. Skipper's played by none other than our other fat loser nerd with unhealthy obsessions, Seth Gold.
And the Masters of the Universe!
Old season callback, y'all! Yep, Seth Gold's back on our channel, and once more, he gets the privilege of being a mega entertaining, snarky Goosebumps kid. Skipper is easily one of the best Goosebumps protagonists ever, and the kid portraying him makes him much more likable than he was in the novel. On the page, Skipper's a bratty, nerdy prick who very slowly evolves into a more heroic person after enduring a zany monster misadventure. Seth Gold captures most of his jerk habits, but manages to make the character way funnier and more likable. Almost a jerk with a heart of gold, who loses the jerk part as the tale goes on. I really love the character Skipper, because he's just like most of us. A proud fanboy who doesn't like others dissing his hobby, although one who clearly has an unhealthy fixation from it. Skipper really loves comics, even though his parents don't approve, as his father, Clark Kent, hates them for dominating his boy's life. But little do they know, this fable's a scary one, because the Masked Mutant becomes real by Freddying out of his wall. Already, unlike the novel, we get much more screen time of the Masked Mutant in action, including seeing him escape from his graphic novel. As Skipper points out all through the episode, the Masked Mutant is the ultimate enemy of Goosebumps comics. He's sort of a creepy hybrid of Batman, the Tick, and the Green Goblin. A cackling madman with great power at shapeshifting and villainous scheming. He's rarely lost in his plots, is cooler than Killer Frost, and is closer than Thanos at successfully conquering the universe, as not even the great heroes can stop his might. The villain's mostly kept in the dark in part 1, however, what we do grasp is that he's very real now, and for unknown reasons targeting our kid hero. He's wonderfully faithful to his book counterpart, a super badass, if ominously creepy conqueror, who can transform into anything he desires, so long as it's solid. His sole weakness is that he can't become liquids, yet he makes up for that by having limitless skills at changing into anything, from leopards to hentai monsters.
I'll try not to leave any squid marks.
Skipper idolizes him as his favorite icon ever, simply because he's the most badass supervillain ever, as even the League of Good Guys struggles to stop him. He's too OP, he's got a hammy, scene-chewing charisma, strikes fear into other villains, and is even smarter than Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mastermind the world has ever known.
Lex Luthor, greatest criminal mind of our time.
Unfortunately, we won't be seeing the foe turn into anything larger than life like he does on the page, because of course, Goosebumps can't afford no kaiju beasts.
Money!
Nevertheless, this guy's a super cool Goosebumps monster who lives up to all his hype, as you'll see shortly. However, I do have to address the big criticism this tale gets. This episode's not entirely scary, but more so a superhero love letter comedy with some creepy moments. Attack of the Mutant, both the episode and even the book, have a more outlandish sci-fi feel, which utilizes some playful and self-parody humor in between our dark adventure. The show riffs old school superheroes and even Goosebumps itself by poking fun at the Golden Age style and R.L. Stine's wacky sense of humor. Outside of Skipper, almost all of the characters are over the top, including real-world people. The side characters are a wacky cast who gain dumb, if amusing scenes to shine. Skipper's family and pals are total cartoons who feel almost more goofy than the frickin' supervillain does.
Your obsession with these things, you know, it's unhealthy. You don't pay attention to anything else. He doesn't pay attention to anything else.
Oh, Skipper, try to pay attention to something else.
His dad's a loser nerd too, as well as being a knockoff Clark Kent reenacting Christopher Reeves's bit. His mom's also a weirdo addicted to her own romance novels as a way of teasing how everyone else has their own dumb hobbies too. And his zany bestie Wilson is also a dork with goofy hobbies of his own. I look at this as a way to justify how Skipper is not an oddball for loving comics, since everyone else has weird quirks themselves. But the show doesn't hesitate to inject some wild comedy in its theme.
Want a rock? Not really.
Some fans do not like the wacky comedy of Goosebumps, which I totally understand. However, since this feels like the staff are actually passionate about the topics, it makes me like the episode more, because they don't feel nasty like a ton of modern writers are.
You ruined my childhood!
In short, the comedy's not laugh out loud funny, but rather decent, as it makes this tale far more memorable. One more trivia: despite gathering a bulk of the cast, Skipper's sister Mitzi is the sole character deleted in the show. Presumably it's cause Mitzi's a rather unimportant bit character who wasn't too vital in the plot, and forces Skipper to face his probs alone. Her absence doesn't subtract anything, as there's still lots of fun characters all over this.
Who cares?
I do like Skipper hanging out and bantering with Wilson far more here, as the guy's also a loser nerd with a strange lust for rocks, and acts as our hero's polar opposite, leading to a few stupid moments boosting the funny tone.
What'd you get?
Tuna.
Me too. Want to trade?
What for?
I don't know.
Okay.
I am so stupid.
Though, believe it or not, there are still unnerving moments which do give the episode strong horror, as we're frequently shown that the masked mutant's stalking Skipper. It's super effective. I will warn you that the monster doesn't do a whole lot in part 1, or so we think, as this segment is a slow burn thriller building up towards the big bad and his big plans. A lot of folks hate this element because we all want more mutant time, but it aims for a more subtle horror. I actually do like part 1 because they use the monster's shape-shifting ability and stalker methods to give you an eerie paranoia fuel, which makes him even creepier as we don't know what the mutant has in store for his target. Yet the terror of an adult psycho following a child is a real type of dread, which makes him so sinister. In short, part 1's the build-up, while the second chapter is all action. I enjoy it because it makes the masked mutant feel very mysterious, yet also establishes important details for our tale's payoff. Speaking of which, while riding the Goosebumps bus, really, the Goosebumps bus, which was so great even Siskel and Ebert loved the show, Skipper then bumps into and befriends Libby, a cute girl who unrealistically loves comics too, and banters with Homeboy over their pop culture know-how.
Do you collect comic books?
Yeah.
So do I.
What kind?
High School Harry and Beanhead.
Oh man, those are the worst.
Much like her novel counterpart, Libby's an absolutely fun sidekick to Skipper, as she's so funny and sassy. They share a natural dialogue together, as Skipper doesn't fully respect her due to Libby loving Archie comics while he's a superhero bro, leading to them bickering while on the mystery sleuthing together, and generating some funny banter. The best part is that Libby tries acting cool, but she's also a mega dork herself.
An invisibility curtain? Now I know why they call you Skipper. When they handed out brains, you got skipped.
Snap?
Glad to report that this episode has great actors, since they're all so enjoyable, especially Skipper and Libby because they feel like real kids, while being genuinely funny instead of irritating. Through Libby, Skipper has somebody to talk to and relay info for the audience about the masked mutant and the drama, alongside showing Skipper's persona, as we see a kinder side to him since he clearly crushes hard on her.
He has to battle the mutant for the fate of the planet. What's so dumb about that?
Are all the boys at Franklin like you?
Nah, I'm the coolest.
Libby's so cool, she's almost too good to be true. Skipper exits off the overpass where Clarissa lives, only to see the impossible. The masked mutant's villain lair is real. As a kitten, I was really worried how the show would pull this set off, since the HQ has a very distinct design on the book cover, which all can see, and a whimsical futuristic look. But the staff honestly does a terrific job at bringing it to life, as it looks so awesome.
It's only a model.
Yep, much to Skip's delight, the villain base is real, but so is the foe. That scare where we at last see the mutant's face always creeped me out. The masked mutant's portrayed wonderfully by Scott Wickware, whom all my Goose fans should recognize from the show prior, as he also played one of the Walking Dead zombies from Welcome to Dead House, and the Haunted Mask from the sequel The Haunted Mask 2.
I am the evil that controls you. You are under my power now, old man.
Since this dude has acted as monsters before, you bet Mr. Wickware does a bossa nova job at showing off the masked mutant's villainy. The baddie's a deranged sadist with a twisted sense of humor, as it's very clear he gets a sick kick out of toying with his #1 fan. Scott's definitely over the top, but he chews every scene he's in, which makes the cheesy comic book foe so enjoyable to watch.
I'm gonna tear you into pieces, and then tear your pieces into pieces.
His outfit also looks pretty dope. R.L. Stine and Jacobus originally aimed for a more corrupt Batman design, but the showrunners made him an emo tick. It screams that he's trying to look cool and edgy, yet he just can't help but embrace the superhero cheesiness, because he loves his evil role. He may dress more like the Tick, but persona-wise, he's very much a Green Goblin. Skipper tells his buddy about this crazy BS, where of course, he doesn't believe him. Though we shockingly get a logical explanation, as Wilson rationalizes that the creators could have just saw the building and use it as inspiration for his art.
He's driving down the street, and he sees this weird building. And he thinks, what a great building, and it'd be perfect. The secret headquarters of the masked mutant. So he copied it from the comic book.
Moments like these really make the mystery stronger, as well as give us solid character writing, because the cast is actually smart. I don't think the episode gets enough credit for finally having smart characters in a horror story. Skipper buys it, but the story's just starting. While reading the latest comic, we get an odd fake out where Dad jump scares him trying to catch Son in the act, but he's duped.
Algebra? You weren't reading a comic book?
No.
This small comedic moment is actually clever foreshadowing, teasing how Skipper is smarter than he looks, and is somewhat of a trickster as he can actually throw some people off with a hidden talent at mischievous deception. Like Chris Wakely, this skill displays that our kid hero hides some depth. Alas, Skip's still obsessed with his novellas, and seeing his favorite story come alive piques his curiosity. Too bad the next time he visits Wonder Tower, it vanishes without a trace. And even Alfred fails to notice it.
It looked like this.
No wonder you're seeing things. This stuff will rot your mind.
My dear boy, sometimes it's a diversion to read such rubbish. Most of the time, it's a waste of time.
The next day, Skipper's new comic arrives, revealing that the mutant mansion has an invisibility cloak installed, hinting that the boy's right. Skipper has a very fascinating character arc, as unlike most Goosebumps protagonists, he's actually sorta a prick who's wrapped up in his own world, before the comic book mystery humbles him by haunting him with the real deal, teaching him to better himself because his love of this world and his beloved villain nearly turn him into one too.
Sorry.
Fucking bitch.
Very much akin to Lucy Dark, Skipper goes from a zero to hero, though making him stand out more is how wild his journey gets. Skipper slowly starts to get the line between reality and fiction blurred, as he has no clue what's going on thanks to crossing the dark side. However, he has faith that this is all real and must gain answers, eventually undergoing his own hero's journey. Fortunately, Skip's not alone, as Libby's the sole ally who trusts him.
Attack of the Mutants!
Roll credits. Exactly like in the book, Lib's our hero's wacky sidekick, as the dynamic duo uncover the masked mutant's secrets together, and explore his world.
Go in, are you crazy?
No, don't even stop to think about it. Just go.
They enter Castle Mutant, and the show kicks back to display the kick-ass sets. Skip's awestruck for a while, but as you can guess, something's strange about this.
What was that?
Was what?
Won't lie, the villain lair is marvelous. The show went all out on trying to bring a campy, old-school comic book realm to life. And thanks to aiming for an Adam West / Killer Clown style, it looks breathtaking. According to the Goosebumps wiki, this tale was mainly shot at the old Molson Brewery in Toronto to offer the base an unsettling Freddy Krueger factory for its darker sets. But they also used some alien sets, neon colors right out of a Schumacher bat flick, and really slick models to make the HQ look as super as possible. I really dig it because it increases that comic book movie vibe, which made the story so fun on the page. Though the one negative I'll confess is that it does have some very bad green screen. They look so hilariously fake and lame that you're almost reminded of Teacher's Pet lameness. It sucks because the sets look so lifelike until they have actual people in them.
I feel like I'm standing in a giant box of crayons.
Oh look, now Forrest Whitaker's here! Isn't he so real? Bad effects aside, the show's efforts are still grand overall. Even Skipper thinks it's uber cool, but remembers why he's here. He seeks to find proof he can show to prove it's real, in spite of Libby's sour tude.
You really think a comic book character can come to life? That's sad. That's really sad.
Don't make me cry.
I love Skipper. Even though there's a scary mutant lunatic on the loose, the show has really dumb, campy comedy galore. Here, it's actually funny because of how weird the episode's sense of humor is. They even make fun of Libby.
We're trapped in here.
Don't worry, they're just slow. They'll open, watch.
We'll be trapped in here forever. The air run out. We'll suffocate. I can't breathe, Skipper. I can't breathe. Oh.
So much funnier than an old story. So, like geniuses, they look down in the deep, dark, spooky basement.
Don't
where somehow they can't go back up, and Libby gets separated.
How odd.
But once alone, Skipper finds a secret room.
How curious.
An art studio, where he discovers that this is where the company drafts concepts for the comic, including some pics of Bobby Hill.
That's my purse! I don't know you!
Actually, it's him. The masked mutant collects pictures of Skipper. For those of you who label this fable as unscary, well, here's a creepy image. A grown-ass psychopathic supervillain is not only stalking an underage boy, but is so close that he's actually collecting pictures of a kid to keep on file.
Please, God, let me just sniff his hat. Let me just sniff his hat.
And this is merely the tip of an unhinged iceberg. The show speeds past this part, but this room is where the comics are made, including stuff which hasn't happened yet, implying that the masked mutant's actually a real being who sold his own biography to the world to detail his rise to power. But now Skipper's literally getting drafted into his agenda. But before we enter the mouth of madness, the boy's jumped by the monster! Psych, it's only Libby trolling.
Fucking bitch.
Before Skipper can show this foreshadowing, his selfies disappear, and the kids decide to get the hell out of here, revealing that the mutant's a troll too. This scene makes zero sense when you realize the twist. Also, how did the mutant change from his true form into his cartoon standee without Skipper noticing?
Great continuity!
Skipper pleads for Libby's aid, only for her to suddenly vanish herself in a blink.
How odd.
Skipper attempts to get back to Earth in order to keep his marbles, but all of a sudden, he has comic vision, causing him to see his world as drawings, and unpleasant feels warp his mind. It's here where we dive into what made the novel so scary. Skipper's creepy sanity slippage. Attack of the Mutant, in a similar vein as Brush with Madness, is a total mind-screw horror, since bizarre occurrences haunt our nerdy hero and blur the line as to what's going on until we reach the twist. Skipper begins suffering fears over his sanity as he keeps seeing comic stuff and becomes very unsure of himself.
Maybe I am going crazy. It's like I don't know what's real anymore.
While definitely not the classic monster formula, this adventure has an unnerving psychological horror, which adds a very powerful shock to our twist. Bet you never expected a goofy-ass homage to cheesy mustache-twirling villains to feature such a fearsome dread. Skipper gains a new comic, and desperate for answers, he reads to see that he's in the story now, as the mutant sends message that he's been watching the boy's every move. But also, the hero of the verse, the Galloping Gazelle, is trapped and requires rescue. This is the character we saw the masked mutant combating earlier, where the ultimate Superman got captured, leading to our fanboy heroing up to save him. Skipper does actually try pleading his parents for aid, but naturally, Goosebumps' parents suck.
Look, I'm in the comic book. I can't see a thing. Would you get that thing away from me? Can't you see what these onions are doing to my eyes?
Loser.
Meaning he's flying solo. Gotta admit, even though in both the book and show, Skipper's been a total brat up to this turn, the story does expose that deep down he is a good guy, as he does all he can to save a helpless man in his hour of need. Now that's Carly Beth evolution. He returns to base, where we get this super weird scene of him and a wise sage bus man.
Into comic books?
Yeah.
You gotta be careful with those things. They can warp your mind.
Okay.
Hey kid, be careful out there. Be real careful.
Who the hell are you? Seriously, this is like the first time we're seeing this guy, and he acts like he and Skipper had this deep bond. But it's so weird. I was going to give this praise for having a surprisingly good adult on Goosebumps, but then this happens.
What the fuck?
Yep, it was Mutant all along, teasing that uneasiness of what a master of disguise he is. Though I can't help but laugh as to how he fits that big-ass bus in his garage.
That isn't unbelievable!
So, Skipper re-enters the Nightmare Room to save his hero and the world, but the mutant's counting on it. Our hero checks out every floor from his novel and eventually finds our celebrity cameo.
Hey, kid! What took you so long? Don't you know you have to help me save the world?
TV Adam West!
Where? Man, that's always funny.
That's right, Adam West is the Galloping Gazelle, the mass mutant's archenemy, leader of the League of Good Guys, and wacky doofus.
What's your name?
Skipper.
Weird name for a superhero.
This is pretty much the large selling point of the episode. Goosebumps got Batman. The distressed superhero is played by the best ever Batman in live action. Adam West's easily the best element of the story, as he was the most remembered guest star the series ever had, and really hams it up, just as much as the villain. The Bright Knight does such a phenomenal job being this crusader that Goosebumps would get him to return to the role for the Attack of the Mutant video game as well.
For this, we are more than happy to make you an honorary member of the League of Good Guys.
Ironically, the Gazelle is more or less everything Batman looks down on. Skipper saves his hero, and they unite to defeat the baddie. Unfortunately, we slowly learn his hero's a huge dick.
How old are you, kid? 8, 9?
I'm 12.
Hey, don't get an attitude.
The Galloping Gazelle is basically a deconstruction of the classic superhero tropes. He's less the beacon of hope, and more so an eccentric weirdo with no social skills, an arrogant ego, and comes across as a pathetic dork, not as epic as he assumes. GG is a total washed up dorkosaurus, who acts more like Zap Brannigan than the Dark Knight. However, Adam West makes him so funny, because like Skipper, he's at least a funny jerk.
This is incredible!
Yeah. Not nearly as impressive as the control room for the League of Good Guys. We have a soft drink machine.
The character being a total lamewad serves to show Skipper that his fantasies are not so stunning in reality, helping him break away his ink addiction. The boy starts to learn the Galloping Gazelle is less noble than Rorschach.
No climbing abilities, huh? You know, kid, if you're gonna be a superhero, you gotta start working out.
A few moments later.
Take your time. Take your time. We only have to save the planet.
This guy's a bat dick. Also, what the heck is up with that laugh?
I'm beating you!
They break into MM's office where GG goofs off.
Not a very comfortable chair either.
But it's a trap.
Snake! There's a snake in my face!
Only Adam West could make that funny. The dastardly deviant traps them, but just as the Gazelle uses his Tasmanian Devil attack, he epic fails and loses. Where, no joke, he rage quits. Yes, the Galloping Gazelle, greatest hero of the Stineverse, actually cries and runs away, ditching our kid hero to die. Yeah, he leaves a child to die at the hands of a crazy man.
Where are you going?
He's right, I'm too old for this superhero stuff. You're on your own, kid.
Oh, another victory for the League of Scared Guys.
Shocker, this is what kills Skip's comic book love completely. His favorite cape fails and leaves him behind to save himself, exposing his heroes a zero. Still a better bat than Ruby Rose.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits a woman.
The masked mutant turns his sights towards the boy, but Skip flees only to bump into Libby just as the foe disappears.
How curious.
We soon get our big reveal. Libby's not really Skipper's pal. Libby's the masked mutant.
He could be anything. He could even be me.
In truth, the mutant had spent the entire episode pretending to be a cute little girl in order to catfish Skipper and study him the whole time. To all of you who labeled this episode as not scary, let me repeat. The villain masqueraded as a pretty girl for weeks in order to seduce, stalk, and get close with this underage kid, learning all his weaknesses and thought process just to lure him down in his basement. Exactly how far was he planning to go?
I'd like to dress up like a girl and make him have sex with me, then say, "Ha! I'm not a girl! You just had sex with a boy who hates you! Ha ha!"
Yeah, let's keep that plan between you, me, and the string of therapists who won't be able to help you.
Nobody better say this story isn't scary after this. Well, to give you time to wash the squick out, I'll point out how this climax is massively altered from the book. In Stine's literature, there's an ultra-convoluted subplot tied to this twist. After Skipper's locked in a room with the supervillain, it turns out that the masked mutant wasn't the real masked mutant, but his henchman, the Magnificent Molecule Man, disguised as his boss the whole time. So the heroes wouldn't figure out that the real mastermind was deep undercover as Libby spying on them. But once Libby enters to seemingly save the day, she frickin' shoots Molecule Man dead with a death ray. Seriously, the little girl vaporizes the goon on the spot in order to dupe Skipper. The Molecule Man was serving as his boss's decoy, but the masked mutant was secretly orchestrating his death all along and kills him to uphold his trick. Oh, and Molecule Man doesn't just die, he's melted on the molecular level to ensure he stays dead. The real mutant used him as a pawn until he no longer needed him, then killed the minion for fun. It's so disturbing and shows you how evil the monster is.
Do I have your word? Do I have your loyalty? Only time will tell.
Needless to say, this dark turn and the whole Molecule Man subplot were deleted entirely, because the show staff decided to keep things simpler and easy to follow for the kids, as it was a bizarre, overly complex Batman gambit, which was ultra random, and there's no way in Mackay that this children's program would get away with a child point blank shooting a man dead on the same network which airs Bobby's World and Tiny Toons.
It's guaranteed not to offend the black people.
No, unacceptable.
Ooh, did I say black? I meant to say minorities.
Acceptable.
As sad as it is that one of the big book scenes got purged, I don't think this is a bad decision. The Molecule Man subplot getting erased does make the narrative easier to grasp, and allows the focus to be on the masked mutant, as he's been all over this show the whole time, either as his costume persona or as Libby, possibly other characters too. It shows us how powerful the villain is, as he's been pulling the strings on his own, and how scary a shapeshifter can really be, as this leads to some sick fridge horror that the mutant might have been numerous other characters stalking Skipper. The show also covers up the plot hole of how the mutant can pop up in multiple places by showing that he can teleport, explaining all the disappearing acts since the monster had been toying with Skipper and jump cutting to his next phase. I can't complain too much since the show atones for the book changes by giving us more villain spotlight. Plus, we actually arrive at the best scene which made this episode so good.
I'll give you my word.
With Skipper at his mercy, the mutant does what else?
He starts monologuing.
Why did the bad guy go to all these crazy extremes to torment his #1 fan like this? He did all this because he wants Skipper as his worthy opponent. What? You see, the masked mutant is bored. He's tired of being the invincible, unstoppable, OP badass he is, and came to our real world craving a challenge. He saw his #1 fan as the perfect new foe to combat. Using his Libby persona, he studied Skipper to know all about the one person who understood his greatness. Skipper knows everything about him, his powers, his achievements, all that he's capable of, so he wanted to return the favor by offering him a chance to use his knowledge to battle his favorite character. This is slightly explained better in the book, as it's mostly implied in the show. The episode speeds through a lot of his rant, but teases enough to let you know his motive.
It's so hard to find good characters for my stories. It's so hard to find good foes. I'm the villain of your dreams.
The masked mutant is bored with victory and pulled a Megamind because he desires the fight. The bad guy did all of this because he wanted to play with Skipper and battle somebody who was a genuine threat. Our monster is merely a psychotic man-child who treats his crimes as a mere game. But now that he has the boy, it's time to end this match and start a new playthrough. This is a wicked twist which shows you how warped the bad guy is, because it makes the mutant so creepy that he saw all his deranged atrocities as simply playing. I love the villain because it perfectly mirrors our hero's own obsession, as MM's addiction to his bad habits turned him into a monster who was ruining the kid's life all for a cheap thrill. The masked mutant's such a diabolical mastermind. Naturally, Skipper wants nothing to do with this, but the baddie drops a second bomb. He's too late, because he's already in his story.
You're not real anymore. You're a comic book character just like me.
Ever since they stepped into each other's lives, the mutant has had the boy in his realm. Skipper was scanned into Comic World, becoming a permanent ink being on his issue. He has no way out as he's stuck in a superhero story, and a superhero tale never ends until one of them must die.
What are you gonna do?
Destroy you, of course.
No, you can't! You're just a character in a comic book, but I'm real!
But at last, we reach the end of Skipper's arc as he steps up, embraces his pop culture talent, and actually tricks the mutant by playing his game. He claims he's no ordinary kid. He's secretly the colossal Elastiboy, who can't be slayed by regular means.
By sulfuric acid! That's the only way you can destroy my elastic body! Oops.
However, he successfully bamboozles Mutant, and no Kitten has the monster accidentally kill himself.
And there's one thing you forgot, Mutant. You can change into a solid fat, and once you change into a liquid, you're dead.
Huh? You tricked me! The great masked mutant tricked by a boy!
Well, when you put it that way, you sound like a garbage villain. I'm pretty impressed because the mutant's death is hardcore brutal.
Fatality.
So, that's all, folks. Skipper wins. The day is saved. The masked mutant's killed off, and the boy grows up. So, was this his hero or villain origin? Yes, We close out on Skipper getting real again, ditching comics even when new issues still arrive. But just when things get normal, Mom discovers a twist ending. Now, this is the last major change, the conclusion. In the book, Skipper attempts to begin a normal life by hanging out with the family, only to accidentally cut himself and realize his blood is still ink, meaning he's still trapped in Toontown, ending on a vague dark twist that our hero's forever living in his old obsession. Going on to more tales from the crypt. However, the show alters this to a happy twist ending. TV Skipper actually unlocks the good ending. As Mom tries cleaning his ink stain, she sees the new comic, revealing that her boy's now his own icon. Not just any icon, Elastiboy!
Stretch it!
Yep, the show rewards our bro a positive twist, as he loves being a comic character now, going from zero to hero, and Elastiboy shall battle future Goosebumps monsters forever. A super campy finale, but a really wicked endnote. Only Elastiboy can squash Blankenship Bug. So that's the end of Attack of the Mutant. And it's so epic, it made me an all-star super fan. This tale's fantastic, no hatred here. There are some issues and nitpicks, but as a whole, I sincerely agree with the fans that this is a legendary classic issue from our favorite horror anthology. It might not be the scariest title, but it's oh so much fun. The writing's so wild, the atmosphere's gripping, the love for old school comic cheese is sweet, the comedy's actually funny, the acting's amusing, Skipper's a wicked kid hero, Adam West turns everything into gold, the sets are awe-inspiring, it improves a good book, there's legit suspense and dark abstract ideas, colorful visuals, compelling themes, deep ideas, and the masked mutant's easily one of the saga's greatest villains. I doubt this tale will ever dethrone the Haunted Mask saga or Perfect School, but for what it is, it's far, far from bad in my kitty eyes. It's a passionate tribute to the days of Adam West Batman and the Super Friends, but granted an edge which does make it slightly creepy with how horrifying a corny doomsday villain would actually be in real life. Even though we laugh at cliched superhero antics, this does make you think that these silly villains and doomsday schemes would be spectacularly unsettling if real. While the adaptation does heavily alter book content, I do believe it does a grand job capturing its spirit and even fixing some weaknesses it had. The theme about unhealthy obsessions with hobbies and cherishing our lives is handled way better, as both the kid hero and unhinged villain both suffer and grow as people mirrored by their own baggage. The masked mutant gains a deranged desire to fight other people because he's unsatisfied with being top dog, and his need to have Skipper as a foe proves to be his undoing, as his new deadly enemy ends up being just that, somebody who beats him. Whereas Skipper's unhealthy addiction to comics not only ends up helping him outsmart an OP foe, but makes him realize that his idols are not the flawless titans he admired, and his journey through all this madness allows him to grow up and ultimately become his own hero, making a difference and at last benefiting from his own intelligence he had deep down. While not as touching as Carly Beth's self-love lesson, it's a rather decent way to teach kids to stop clinging to false heroes or bad habits, and instead work on bettering yourself as a person, or risk being destroyed by your own vices like the villain was. Yeah, it's not Shakespeare, but it's a nice fun way to not only teach kids, but offering them a dumb fun misadventure in Stine's classic Goosebumps style. Scott Wickware and Adam West both carry this tale's epicness on their backs as they're pure icons, villains. If you don't care for any morality fables, the over-the-top hero and villain are also huge pros to watch this. I'm also going to have to counter-argue that there are some unsettling horrors here too, especially with the mutant stalking and catfishing a child. The villain's super evil and psychotic. The comic world-absorbing Skipper has some uncanny valley and existential dread. The lair has an unwelcoming feel, and the show does a good job at detailing how a goofy comic being played dead serious does have disturbing terror when you really think about it. Not only is the premise fun, but I do think it's very creative at storytelling and a loving tribute to the superhero genre. I actually prefer this over Brush with Madness. While the Haunting Hour fable had some killer fun and dark scares, it paid tribute to comics along the lines of Sin City and Watchmen. While Attack of the Mutant aims for the classical campy golden era and Cape Crusader type of deal many of us have known since we were little. Plus, the two-part runtime allowed much more content to help make the arc delightful and thought out. I highly recommend this title because Goosebumps tackling superheroes is truly a marvel. Now I see how R.L. Stine got to write Man-Thing. I grant this event comic a gold skull and a perfect score. I absolutely love it. 100% an epic Goosebumps masterpiece. The best villain of the series, best premise of the series, best production, and best Batman. What's not to love? Attack of the Mutant may be a campy horror frightmare, but it's a wonderful page-turner. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I wish you all a super Halloween.